Dr. Kaveh Mehran vanished without a trace. Farzad Nouri died in a car explosion carrying something no country dared to admit existed. Yael Shamir chased across continents, while Colonel Dariush Rahimi hunted truths his government wanted buried. What started as a defection turned into a deadly game of betrayal, technology, and silence, where the rules were written by a man no one could control. This is the untold story of the most dangerous shadow war between Israel and Iran. In 2015, the city of Tehran moved with its usual hum, traffic blaring, shopkeepers shouting over the noise, and government buildings cloaked in silence. Yet something shifted in the classified corridors of the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran. A name disappeared from every internal roster. A man erased without warning or ceremony. Dr. Kaveh Mehran, a nuclear physicist known not only for his intellect, but for his deep loyalty to the Iranian regime, had vanished. His last sighting was recorded by a parking garage camera in Natanz, just after dusk. He exited the facility, briefcase in hand, and got into his government-issued sedan. He never arrived home. The disappearance wasn't immediately treated as an emergency. In Iran's tightly controlled scientific and military circles, movement was common without explanation. Scientists were often relocated, transferred, or hidden for security. But something felt different. Internal messages bounced between encrypted channels. When two of Dr. Mehran's closest colleagues asked about him, they were swiftly reassigned to separate cities. One of them, a data analyst named Sherifi, reportedly had a breakdown within days of the change. Still, the official word was simple: Dr. Mehran is on reassignment for a classified mission. But miles away, across the Mediterranean in Tel Aviv, another story unfolded. Inside a nondescript building near Herzliya, Mossad's clandestine unit known as the Sixth Frame celebrated the quiet success of a mission 2 years in the making. Operation Silent Ember had not only succeeded, they had done so without a trace. Dr. Kaveh Mehran was now under Israeli protection, relocated to a secure compound far from public eyes. For Mossad, this wasn't just an intelligence victory. It was a strategic masterpiece. Dr. Mehran wasn't kidnapped. He wasn't threatened. He was turned. Long before his disappearance, Mossad had identified Mehran as a potential defector. His professional accomplishments were impressive. He had led multiple uranium enrichment projects and was rumored to be part of a parallel weapons program no one dared admit existed. But what caught Mossad's attention wasn't just his intellect. It was a brief, encrypted message intercepted in 2013 from a device believed to belong to Mehran, asking one question: what is freedom worth if you're locked in a lab? They watched him for 2 years, studied his routines, his behavior, his silence. When they finally reached out, it wasn't with force. It was with an offer: a new life, safety for his family, freedom from surveillance, and access to research beyond politics. The bait worked, or so they believed. Mehran was relocated to an isolated safe house on the outskirts of Limassol, Cyprus. He was given a new identity, new documents, and the illusion of peace. He provided Israel with blueprints, code names, lists of shadow scientists, and ghost facilities. The files he handed over were enough to paralyze Iran's nuclear progress for at least 5 years. Yet, despite his cooperation, something in his behavior never settled. He didn't ask for money. He never requested to see his family. He rarely spoke at all. Inside the safe house, he spent his nights writing on scrap paper, drawing designs, and burning them the next morning. He refused a laptop, refused external communication. Mossad handlers assumed he was traumatized, mentally shaken by the defection. But the truth was more complex. Dr. Mehran hadn't defected to serve another flag. He had his own plans, and they had started long before Mossad arrived. Unknown to his handlers, Mehran had not come empty-handed. Hidden deep within a secret pocket of his briefcase, a compartment Mossad's search team had overlooked, was a flash drive. It wasn't labeled. It didn't contain missile designs or enrichment protocols. Instead, it held fragments of something different: a prototype, a concept model, a portable isotope destabilizer, something Mehran had designed in secret, outside the knowledge of his superiors. A device that could, in theory, render nuclear warheads useless in a 10-mile radius. He hadn't just defected with knowledge. He had brought leverage. The files were encrypted under a dead man's switch, set to upload to the dark web if Mehran was killed or captured. And although Israel believed it had won a battle in the long war of espionage, it had unknowingly let a new player into the global game. one it couldn't control. Meanwhile, in Tehran, suspicions grew. The internal narrative of reassignment began to collapse when a military Lotusan unusual data access logs days before Mehran's disappearance. Private satellite footage was requested. A blacked-out vehicle was spotted on the road to Isfahan, later found abandoned near the border with Azerbaijan. The pieces didn't fit any official operation, but one conclusion became clear to the IRGC: Dr. Kaveh Mehran had not been reassigned. He had betrayed them. The hunt began, quietly, without public announcements or internal memos. They activated sleeper agents, ordered shadow monitoring across embassies, and deployed their most resourceful fixer, someone who would not rest until Mehran was found. But by then, the man they were looking for was already 5 moves ahead. Farzad Nouri wasn't the kind of man who stood out. Average height, dark eyes, and a forgettable face that made him perfect for the job he was chosen for. Years earlier, he had been a small-time smuggler operating along Iran's western borders, moving electronics, medical supplies, and, on rare occasions, guns. But after an arrest he narrowly escaped in 2011, Farzad was given a choice: to disappear into a prison cell or work for the IRGC Shadow Logistics Unit. He chose survival. Over time, his new handlers shaped him into a courier. Not the kind who delivered messages, but the kind who transported pieces of secrets, quietly and precisely, across borders where diplomats could not reach. In 2016, Farzad received his most cryptic orders yet. He was to travel through Istanbul, Dubai, Belgrade, and Athens within a month, collecting a series of packages, each hand-delivered to him in exchange for code phrases. His handlers never told him what he was carrying, but the security around the exchanges was unlike anything he had experienced. Private hotels booked under false names, couriers waiting at specific times, always alone, always alert. The final delivery was scheduled for Sarajevo, where Farzad was to collect a briefcase and fly it back to Tehran under diplomatic protection. The message was clear: this wasn't a normal operation. Unknown to Farzad, his every move was already under surveillance. Unit A200, Israel's elite cyber intelligence division, had been monitoring Iranian activity in Eastern Europe for months. When a burst of chatter mentioned Red Courier, moving sensitive material, alarms went off in Tel Aviv. Satellite tracking, phone triangulation, and financial tracing were activated. What concerned Mossad wasn't just the movement. It was the possible link to Dr. Kaveh Mehran. Despite being in their custody, Mehran had grown increasingly detached in Cyprus. His behavior became erratic, his bodyguards reported unusual activity, and whispers began about encrypted messages leaving the safe house. Then came the clue that confirmed their fears: an intercepted audio fragment in Istanbul. A voice, distorted but unmistakably Mehran's, was heard giving specific instructions about phase delivery and components. Suddenly, the defector didn't look like an ally. He looked like a player in a much larger scheme. Mossad scrambled to identify the courier. It took only 3 days to link Farzad Nouri to 2 past smugglings that had been flagged by Western agencies. Photos confirmed his recent presence in Turkey and Serbia. Yael Shamir, already in Eastern Europe under Operation Glass Cage, was given a new ordering: intercept Farzad, retrieve the package, and eliminate loose ends. Farzad, unaware of the growing web around him, arrived in Sarajevo on a cold December morning. The final exchange took place near the old Bad Ard, Ija market. He received a briefcase from a man dressed as a cleric. The transaction took less than 30 seconds, but Mossad agents stationed at multiple checkpoints had already logged his presence. Drones followed him from a distance as he drove away in a rented vehicle, heading toward the border with Montenegro. He never made it. The explosion occurred at dusk on a narrow mountain road outside Trebinje. The blast was controlled, targeting the front of the vehicle. Forensics later revealed the detonation was triggered by remote signal, a method frequently used in covert operations. Farzad's body was unrecognizable. The briefcase, strangely, was not found in the wreckage. What was found instead was a half-melted sat phone and part of a scorched metal case with a unique latch, designed specifically for radiation shielding. The briefcase had either been removed before the blast, or it had never been inside the vehicle to begin with. Israeli intelligence was thrown into confusion. Had someone gotten to Farzad before them? Or had Farzad handed off the package at some unknown point during his route? Intercepted messages suggested a handoff may have occurred in Athens. A figure labeled KK9 was mentioned in code, believed to be a broker for an underground syndicate known as Nexus Group, which specialized in trading illegal nuclear components. The situation had spiraled. The operation, originally intended to regain control of a defector's rogue behavior, was now a race against time. Neither Israel nor Iran held the key. The device, whatever it was no longer in government hands. Back in Tehran, the IRGC denied any involvement in Farzad's travels. Publicly, he didn't exist. Privately, his death was treated as a major intelligence breach. Colonel Dariush Rahimi, a feared operative with a history of successful counter-ops, was given authority to act without limits. He was ordered to find out where the courier had been, who he had spoken to, and most importantly, where the briefcase had gone. The map of the conflict had expanded. What began as a silent disappearance had grown into a global manhunt. Everyone believed they were chasing stolen technology, but they didn't know they were chasing a plan. A plan crafted not by governments, but by a man who had already vanished into the shadows. And for the first time, neither Iran nor Israel had control over what came next. Sarajevo had been a blood-stained city in the past, a place where ghosts of war still lingered in allies and old government buildings. But in 2017, it became the backdrop for one of the most intricate spy hunts of the decade. Operation Glass Cage, now fully activated, turned its focus to uncovering the truth behind the stolen briefcase and the increasing signs that Dr. Kaveh Mehran had deceived everyone. Yael Shamir, Mossad's most discreet and trusted handler, had been working from the shadows for years. Her identity was classified beyond top secret, her movements untraceable even within her own agency. She was brought into the operation not just because of her skills, but because she had studied Mehran's psychological profile in depth. She was the only one who had questioned his motives from the start. Now, with Farzad Nouri dead and the briefcase missing, her instincts were proving right. Yael began her search in Sarajevo, tracing Farzad's last contacts. One name surfaced repeatedly in coded messages: Armin Delic, a former Bosnian intelligence officer turned arms broker. He had disappeared from official records in 2013, but was rumored to control a black market network stretching from Belgrade to Berlin. A local informant led Yael to a bar near the Moljaka River, where Delic had been seen only days before. But by the time she arrived, the bar had been torched. Inside the charred remains, forensic teams found a hidden compartment containing a USB drive, labeled in Russian and Hebrew. The encryption was military-grade. Back in Tel Aviv, Unit 8200 decrypted the drive after 2 days. What they found were fragments of communications between Delic and someone referred to as K, assumed to be Kaveh Mehran. The messages weren't about escape or betrayal. They were about components, specific isotopes, casing materials, timing systems, everything that hinted toward the assembly of a prototype device. Kaveh wasn't just selling secrets. He was building something. Meanwhile, Colonel Dariush Rahimi landed in Vienna under a diplomatic cover. He had traced part of Farzad's route to a cargo hub in Bratislava, where a private courier plane had landed shortly after the explosion in Trebinje. Customs records were doctored, but Rahimi's team discovered security footage showing a tall figure wheeling a metal case marked as scientific equipment. The man's face was never shown, but the footage revealed a symbol on his jacket, a faded logo of a disbanded Israeli tech startup. It was the first sign that the trail had split. Someone within Israel, or once tied to it, was involved outside official channels. Rahimi was furious. His mission, which was supposed to be a quiet cleanup of a rogue scientist, was now unraveling into an international crisis. He expanded his team and ordered covert surveillance on known Israeli operatives across Europe. As both sides moved in parallel, Yael reached a breakthrough. She tracked down a banker in Budapest known for handling untraceable cryptocurrency transfers. Records showed a large payment made 2 weeks after Mehran's disappearance. The recipient was listed under the name Kate Shani, an alias previously linked to Iran's former missile program, but believed to be inactive. The amount transferred was astronomical, enough to fund an independent lab and private security for years. Yael requested immediate backup, but before her team could make the arrest, the banker was found dead in his apartment. No signs of forced entry, no evidence left behind. The only clue was a half-torn note with coordinates written in shorthand. They pointed to a warehouse in the outskirts of Prague. When Yael arrived, she found the location already compromised. A gunfight had occurred just hours earlier. Local police had been silenced with bribes, and the scene was scrubbed. But a forensic sweep revealed one chilling detail: the place had been used to assemble something. Empty crates marked with radiation hazard signs, tools consistent with weapons calibration, and tucked away in a backroom, a single thumbprint on a steel table, positively identified as Dr. Kaveh Mehran's. Rahimi arrived in Prague the next morning. He had received the same intelligence. Both sides crossed paths for the first time, though never face to face. While Israeli drones circled overhead, Rahimi's surveillance operatives watched from parked cars, both teams aware of the other but unsure whether to engage. Then came the shock. Through a separate channel, Israeli cyber analysts intercepted a dark web transaction. Partial blueprints of a miniaturized isotope destabilizer had been sold to an unknown buyer. The source code, tagged with NXG, confirmed what both sides feared. Nexus Group, the underground syndicate, had acquired part of Mehran's work. The deal was irreversible. Yale's report to Mossad was grim. Mehran had used them all. He had staged his defection, orchestrated the career route, planted false leads, and now enabled a black market syndicate to weaponize his creation. The worst part, he had done it without ever leaving a footprint. No country could claim victory now. No agency could control the consequences. With the device out of government hands and a rogue scientist on the loose, the operation had transformed. It was no longer about protecting national secrets or stopping a betrayal. It was now a race to prevent global disaster. And Kaveh Mehran had made sure no one knew where the finish line was. In early 20, an encrypted forum on the dark web, known only to a handful of intelligence operatives and black market dealers, lit up with a message that sent waves across the global security network. A new file, titled Ghost IR, appeared for download. It was only accessible through a string of password, protected layers, and referenced advanced nuclear destabilization theory. The file was incomplete, its diagrams fragmented, its code partially corrupted, but it contained enough to validate what Mossad and the IRGC had feared for months. Dr. Kaveh Mehran's prototype was real, and the technology had now entered the ungoverned digital marketplace. The Ghost IR file caused panic. It wasn't just the content. It was the signature embedded in the metadata. A digital watermark pointed to a server located in Odessa, Ukraine. What raised even more concern was the server's original owner, a now defunct Israeli tech firm, once a front company for Mossad's cyber research division. The Shell Corporation had been disbanded years earlier after a quiet internal audit, but the server, it seemed, had remained operational. Forgotten, abandoned, or perhaps left behind intentionally, Mossad launched an immediate operation to secure the site. Drones flew in over the Black Sea, while a 3-agent team moved on the ground, led by an experienced cyber operative named Liar Hadar. They arrived at the location, an aging warehouse tucked behind a shipping terminal, only to find it already breached. Locks had been cut, surveillance cameras disabled, and the interior wiped clean. On one wall, a strange message was spray-painted in red: "No more flags, only ghosts." Inside the main server room, most hard drives had been physically destroyed. Only one remained partially intact, jammed in the data rack. It contained logs showing an external connection just 48 hours prior. The IP address pointed to an anonymous satellite uplink. The exact origin couldn't be traced, but the timestamp confirmed something chilling. Someone, likely Mehran, had used this forgotten system to upload the data and disappear again undetected. Mossad's report arrived in Tel Aviv with urgency, but by the time the information reached higher command, the IRGC had already acted. Colonel Dariush Rahimi had launched a parallel mission without diplomatic clearance. His team raided a separate data node in Bucharest connected to the same Ghost IR network. There, they found remnants of transaction records, Bitcoin trails leading to accounts to Nexus Group's finance shell in Malaysia. Mossad's more concerning was a single access showing the same alias used in Mehran's original communications, UK. What made matters worse was the discovery that the Ghost IR file was never intended to be a single, complete upload. Mehran had designed it as a jigsaw puzzle, distributed in pieces across various locations, each fragment sent to different groups. Some ended up in the hands of rival intelligence agencies. Others, it seemed, were bought by non-state actors with unknown agendas. No single party had the full design, but if any of them figured out how to merge the fragments, the The result could destabilize global nuclear security. Meanwhile, deep in the Israeli Negev desert, Yael Shamir met with senior Mossad analysts to reconsider their entire understanding of Mehran. He hadn't just defected. He hadn't just betrayed Iran. He had manipulated both sides into thinking they were in control, while he set his own blueprint in motion. The Odessa server wasn't a slip. It was a calculated breadcrumb, a way to announce his independence. Across the border, Rahimi reached a similar conclusion. Back in Tehran, a senior official confronted him about the failed interception, warning that the Supreme Council was losing patience. Rahimi, however, knew punishment wouldn't solve the crisis. Mehran had become more than a rogue scientist. He was now a digital myth, someone who didn't play by rules or recognize borders. Then came a second upload. This time, it wasn't a file but a video. It was barely 40 seconds long, sent to both Mossad and the IRGC through a shared NATO leak channel. In it, a figure wearing a featureless mask stood against a concrete wall. A distorted voice spoke over static. "You watched me, used me, and thought I was yours. But in the shadows, no one owns anyone. What I created is not a weapon, it's a warning. You've built your world on fear. Now fear will be free." The clip ended with a flicker of coordinates. When decoded, they pointed to a remote region in the Arctic Circle. Mossad scrambled reconnaissance flights. Satellites repositioned. But when they arrived, there was nothing. No base, no heat signature, no movement. Only ice and silence. The location was symbolic, another misdirection. Mehran wasn't leaving clues to be caught. He was proving a point. That control, in the world of espionage and power, was an illusion. The game had changed. Nations that once operated with impunity now found themselves outpaced by a single man who had abandoned allegiances. The Ghostmeyer file, incomplete but deadly, remained scattered in the digital wild. And while Israel and Iran strengthened their cyber defenses and hunted shadows, Mehran vanished again, this time not as a defector or a rogue scientist, but as something more dangerous, an idea. In early 2019, the security forces at an international nuclear summit in Vienna received an anonymous tip just hours before the event's opening. The message, sent through a disposable encrypted server in Norway, claimed that a device with destabilizing capabilities had been smuggled into the venue. The email was short, direct, and signed off with a single letter, K. The message set off a chain reaction. Within 20 minutes, the Austrian Federal Police evacuated the conference hall under the guise of a technical emergency. Bomb squads and radiation experts swept the building from top to bottom. No device was found, no anomalies, no breach. Yet the fear had done its job. Delegates left the summit rattled, some refusing to return. The world's top nuclear experts had been reminded that even the threat of chaos could hold power equal to any weapon. Mossad received the forwarded alert from their Austrian counterparts with one chilling detail. The origin of the threat was not traceable to any of Mehran's known locations. The server had been bounced across 12 countries. Whoever sent the message had technological skills beyond even their elite cyber units. That was when Yael Shamir, now working as the lead on Project K, knew without doubt, Mehran hadn't just disappeared. He had ascended into a new role, one where he didn't need to be present to be dangerous. Days later, a sealed envelope arrived at Mossad's international office in Brussels. No stamps, no markings. Just a white slip of paper with a handwritten note. It reading, "You tried to use me. They tried to control me. Now both of you are irrelevant. Power doesn't belong to nations anymore. It belongs to those who know how to hide it." OK attached was a small GPS coordinate, pointing to a patch of white nothingness deep within the Arctic Circle. Within hours, satellite scans were dispatched. Mossad deployed a team. So did the IRGC, each working silently, each unsure if the other had found the same clue. The location revealed nothing. Just snow, ice, and wind. No signal, no heat. Mossad's drones circled for days but picked up no electromagnetic signature, no evidence of human presence. But the silence itself was a message. Mehran wasn't sending them on wild goose chases for fun. He was reminding them that he was beyond their reach, that their power was limited by borders, budgets, and bureaucracy. His wasn't. While the two nations continued to chase shadows, Nexus Group quietly re-emerged in intelligence reports. An intercepted communication revealed that multiple entities, some state-sponsored, some freelance, had begun assembling fragments of the Ghost IR file. It was now confirmed that at least two complete versions of the isotope destabilizer design existed in digital form. They were incomplete, faulty, even unstable, but in the wrong hands, even a corrupted prototype could be catastrophic. Back in Tehran, Colonel Dariush Rahimi presented his final report to the Supreme Council. His tone was controlled, but his conclusion was cleared. We no longer hunt a man. We hunt the consequences of our own creation. He had failed to bring Mehran back. But what stung deeper was the realization that the IRGC's own ambition had played a part in creating this crisis. They had cornered a brilliant mind, underestimated his independence, and then lost control. Now, the scientist they once called a national asset had become their most elusive threat. In Tel Aviv, Yale stood before her own debriefing board. Her report was more personal. She explained that Mehran had always shown signs of detachment, not from fear or ideology, but from structure itself. He didn't believe in nations, only in knowledge, and he had used everyone to preserve that belief. He had manipulated Iran into funding his prototype. He had manipulated Israel into protecting him. And then he had disappeared into a world where he answered to no one. Across global intelligence networks, the name Kaveh Mehran became classified to the highest level. Governments refused to acknowledge his existence. His image was scrubbed from digital records. Media blackouts ensured his name never reached the public, but whispers remained. In private war rooms, intelligence officers still debated where he might be, whether he was alive, whether he had built more than one device. Some believed he had died, frozen somewhere in the Arctic. Others claimed he had defected again, this time to a private syndicate in Southeast Asia. But no one could say for certain. What everyone agreed on was this: the nature of warfare had changed. It no longer required armies or borders, just one brilliant mind, a fragmented file, and the will to disappear. Inside the intelligence community, Mehran was no longer seen as a rogue agent or a missing scientist. He had become something far more dangerous, an idea, one that couldn't be captured, killed, or reasoned with. An idea that had proven a single person, operating in silence, could unbalance the entire world order. And that idea still lingered, unsolved, unclaimed, waiting